Okay, we'll start with the data management system today, and then we'll go to the recapping the object-oriented programming with Java. So let's start. So you already know what a data management system is. A data management system basically creates and manages the database. With the help of data management system, programmers can easily retrieve, create, update, and manage the data. The various functions performed by database management system, which gives it an upper hand over the traditional file system. Users can create their personalized database as per requirement. So earlier, there were file system, and all the data used to be stored in different folders and files, which were not really useful when dealing with large data, and especially when you want to search something or retrieve the data, it is really hard to do that when you are storing it into a file, because there could be duplication of the data. There could be multiple uh, folders with the same name or files with the same name, and it's really hard to track that with the file system. So that's where database management system shines. So let's give an introduction of that. What's the need or advantage of database management system? Well, first is the ease of accessing the data. In a file system, different files are created for each user containing which data they can access. Database management system removes this redundancy by granting the access to the users and decides which and how many parts of the data is accessible to them from the database. Storage and management system of the data. Unlike file system, data can be directly stored in form of objects in database management system, making it easier to query. Avoiding duplicates and redundancy. In file system, storage of the data might take place multiple times, like explained earlier. Data normalization is used in data management system to avoid duplicate data. So data normalization is a very important topic which we'll study later. I think we did study about this also just a few days ago. Concurrent data accessing. Users can access data simultaneously through the application through different applications. Database integrity. It means that the data should be accurate and consistent, and this is implemented by enforcing checks or constraints on the data. Constraints mean limitations. Like, for example, you can only store n number of characters, or if it's supposed to be a data type integer, it'll always have to be integer. You can't put string into it. So these are kind of security constraints which are there in place while it is being entered or manipulated in a database. Data of a database is not allowed to violate these constraints or rules. For example, a constraint of an age of an employer can be between 18 to 70 only. While entering or modifying the data of the age, the DBMS should enforce this constraint. So what are the needs and advantages? Well, it's the ease of access, because unlike file system, where each user has its own file created for him which only he has access to, in database we can really decide which user will have what type of access in the entire database system and not just specific areas. And it's easy to store, because there you have to store in form of files and folders. Here it's just an object, and you know that on object you can run different functions and perform different calculations. There are a lot of things that you can do when you have the objects available. You can use multiple object oriented programming languages to manipulate that data. There won't be any duplicates like explained in file system. There could be duplicates, same files occurring in multiple places. But here, because we have those constraints, we ensure that there's no redundancy. We use data normalization for that. And multiple users can access that data simultaneously. And then there's security, because we put certain rules because of which only certain type of data is accepted. And it's not going to accept anything else apart from that. Okay, what are different types of data management system architecture? You have logical architecture, which defines the data organization and access at different logical levels of the database. So three-level architecture of the DBMS, and then you have physical architecture, which defines various components of a database software: DML pre-compiler, DDL compiler, file manager, database manager, query processor, administrator, files indices, and dictionary. So basically, two types of architecture: logical and physical. This is from the assignment. So, what are the three levels of database architecture? Basically, referring to the physical architecture. It was designed by ANSI for data abstraction for different types of the users. There are three levels: are physical or internal level, conceptual level, and external level. So, this is your external level, this is your conceptual level, and this is your internal or physical level, and then your physical database. So, this is the hierarchy of these three levels. Okay, and these are users, these are system administrator, which have access to conceptual and internal levels, and users have access to these. This is the user view inside of the external view. This is what users will be able to see. uh, Conceptual and internal is accessible by the administrator, system administrators. Users won't have access to that, but whatever user is going to see will be living inside of the external view. Okay, so let's go into the detail now. So, physical or internal level. This is the lowest level in the three level architecture. It describes how data is actually stored into the database. In this lowest level, this data is stored in external hard drives in form of bits, and at a little high level, it can be said that the data is stored in files on folders. The physical level also discusses compression and encryption techniques. So, to sum it up, this is basically describing how the data is stored. Uh, of course, if the data is like really, really big, it can be stored in hard drives in form of bits. Then you have the conceptual level, and its purpose is to define the structure, relationship, and the constraints of the database. So, what is going to be the structure? What is the relationship between different components of that database? And what are the limitations on the database? What are the rules? So that's the role of this particular level. So define this structure, define this relationship between different entities. It describes how the database appears to the users conceptually and relationship between various database tables. It does not care for how the database is stored. So the storing part is actually dealt in the physical level. This is what decides how the database is going to be stored in a hard drive or what. And in the conceptual level, it doesn't care where it's stored. All it talks about is how it's going to be structured, what's the relationship, what are the different set of rules applied on the database, all of those. Then you have the last one is external view, which is for the users. Basically, this is the highest level, closest to the user. It only shows the relevant database content to the user in form of views and hides the rest of the data. So, for example, if user is logged in and he's on his account page, so uh, we only need to show his account details, maybe his name, his email address, his profile picture. We don't really need to show him any somebody else's data. So that's what it talks about, that here user will see the information relevant to him, or maybe there are some data which is publicly available, so he'll be able to see, everybody will be able to see that. We don't have to show everything that we have in the database, only something that we want that user to see. So different users can see the database's different view as per the individual requirements. Sometimes, let's say, We can also show him data as per geographical locations. For example, if somebody is on Australia and it's probably a shopping website, so we can't show him products which are not available in his country. So it has to be related to him. If somebody is in a different country, let's say UK, so we have to show him products according to that. So our database may contain a lot of information for different countries, but we have to show him accordingly. So that's what he talks about. Okay, so coming back, okay, I'm going to give you a recap because this is an important question. Three levels: physical internal level, conceptual or logical level, external or view level. This is the highest level closest to the users. We have to show him data as per his needs relevant to him. Uh, and we don't show everything, we just show the relevant information to the user here. Conceptual level basically doesn't care how the data is stored. All it cares is what is the relationship between different entities, the structure of that data, as well as, yeah, uh, yeah, and the limitations of that data. What will be the constraints? What are the limitations? And you have the physical level, which, and here we decide how the data is stored in an external hard drive in form of bytes. So this is information about storing that data. Okay, let's move on. I talk about data independence and its relation. Data independence in relation with three DBMS architecture, mapping between different levels. Data independence means change of the data at one level should not affect another level. So we should be able to modify the schema at one level of the database without altering the schema at the next or higher level. The three-level architecture defines a single database system across all the three levels. Therefore, different levels must map with each other. This mapping leads to the concept of data independence. So we spoke about different levels of the architecture, like physical level, conceptual level, as well as the one that is where the view level for users. Now, although these works independently, but they need to map uh, with each other. The data at different levels must be mapping with each other, and this mapping leads to the concept of data independence. So, the two types of data independence. One is physical data independence, which is defined as the capacity to change the internal schema without having to change the conceptual schema. Okay. So if we change the internal schema, then it should not change the conceptual schema. If we do any changes in the storage size of the database system, then the conceptual structure of the database will not be affected. So we discussed that those three levels, which is physical, conceptual, and the view. And what it's saying is that the physical data independence means that if we go ahead and change how the storage of the database system is, it should not impact how we have structured the database. So the conceptual level should not interfere in the other level, like conceptual level. Conceptual level should be completely independent, and that's being data independent. It is used to separate the conceptual levels from the internal levels. Physical data independence occurs at the logical interface level. Now, logical data independence, it refers characteristics of being able to change the conceptual schema without having to change the external schema. External basically the view level. So it's saying that if we change the schema of the way the structure of that particular data is, it should not affect the user's view, the external schema. It should not affect the third level. Logical data independence is used to separate the external level from the conceptual view. If we do any changes in the conceptual view of the data, then the user view of the data will not be affected. All three lines is kind of talking about the same thing. Logical data independence occurred at the user interface level. Okay. Now we go into the detail of physical database management system architecture. The physical architecture defines the software components used to process and enter data and how these software components are related or interconnected. There are a number of key functions which are similar to most of the management system. The components that normally execute these functions are shown in the figure. We have general users, application programs, application programmers, system calls. You have a query, database administrator. You have the schema here. You have compiler, query processor, pre-compiler, object code program. This is the manager, it's file manager. These are data files, storage on the disk, data dictionary. So this is your physical database management system architecture. So what are these components? Well, you have DML pre-compiler. So now we're talking about these individual components, like for example, DML pre-compiler. Every database management system contains of the DML, which is data manipulation language, which is used for data insertion, modification, data access, etc. Basically manipulating the data, perform the CRUD operation. Purpose of DML compiler is to translate the DML commands which are written as a part of the application program into related procedural calls so that they can be executed to perform desired operation. In addition, this component of DBMS is also coordinates the translation of queries which are input to the query processor component. Then you have the DDL compiler. It is used to compile a DDL statement into related tables, which includes metadata, constraints, access rights. So DML precompiler basically translates DML commands, and the DDL compiler compiles the DDL statement into related tables. Metadata tables are stored in the data dictionary or system catalog. This metadata is used for providing information about tables to other components of DBMS, protecting data and enforcing data integrity. So sometimes we have to create multiple tables. We may not want to put everything in one table because uh, we may have some metadata like main data and then metadata, data about data. Metadata means data about data. So some more information about that data. So that we can keep in a separate table. So this is what it's talking about. This metadata is used for providing information about the tables to other components of database management system. Then you have file manager. All the tables and metadata of the database are physically stored as files under the control of file subsystem of the operating system. The file subsystem of the operating system has generic features which may not be sufficient for a DBMS file. The file manager component of DBMS keeps track of all the data files, their index files, and all the related information of the database system. Database manager. The role of the database manager is to accept the request of the data access or data manipulation by user queries and application programs to perform the relevant actions on data and taking help of the data dictionary and the file manager. So file manager, what does this do is basically all the tables and metadata are physically stored as files, and database manager job is to accept all the requests for access and manipulation and perform relevant action on the data. Data manager protects the data from unauthorized access manipulation. It also enforces integrity constraints. Okay, then you have major components of database manager. So we are still under database manager, but we are further dividing into subcomponents. You have authorization control to verify credentials of the user to make sure that they are authorized. You have command processors to convert the DDL and DML or other programming language commands to executable sequence of code. Integrity checker checks if the data is being inserted, follows all specified constraints on the database. So integrity checker is going to check if whatever rules we have set for that particular data is being met or not. Query optimizer tries to optimize the processing time of different queries. Transaction manager is one of the important components which checks if the user has right to perform the transactions. Scheduler component manages the consistency of the data while concurrent transactions are being processed by a database. Recovery manager is responsible for recovery of the database to a consistent state in case of a failure. Buffer manager optimizes the process of the transfer of data between main memory and the disk where the database is stored. Then you have query processor. Every database management system consists of a query language, which enables database creation, manipulation, retrieval, and data control operations. In general, the query languages processes consist of two basic components. The first one passes the query into native database language, and the second optimizes the query and prepares the code for query execution. The parser checks the syntax of the query and converts the query into a sequence of tasks and sends these tasks to Query Optimizer. The Query Optimizer is responsible for generating a set of alternative query evaluation plans. So now we talk about the database administrator. The role of DBA is to monitor, control the database creation at different levels, the three-level architecture that we spoke about, and mapping between different levels. So database administrator job is to basically monitor those three levels and do the mapping between them. Modification, access, query response time, security, recovery, all of those things. Then you have data files, indices, data dictionary. Data files is stored in Data is stored in data files. Data files can be standard files or encrypted files, and they are not accessible directly to any system users. Indices are stored in index files, and they provide fast access to data items. Data dictionary or directory is designed to store metadata, which is data about data in a database system. A good data dictionary allows efficient data access as it can provide a roadmap to guide users to access information within a large database. Okay, we're going to talk about the data model and trends in a little while. Uh, so Maya, are you ready for the explaining or doing the answers of those questions where we have to execute the queries statements?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we'll take a break in the theory part and we'll do some exam question papers. Let me stop my screen share. Uh, would it be possible for you to cover um, DD? I think what is that called? DML, data manipulation language, from the textbook, and then start the questions, because then it'll be a little more clear of what these are before we actually start doing it. So maybe you can open the textbook and just go through all the those commands, DML commands.
So DML statements consist of select, insert, update, and delete. So, select is used for retrieving information.
Wait a minute, 1 second. So DML is basically, as I explained, data manipulation language, and the job of this is to basically manipulate the data, like, or perform the CRUD operation, which is create, read, uh, update, and delete. Now there are different commands that are used to manipulate the data, and now Sumaya will tell us what those commands are. Go on.
So there's select to retrieve information from the database. It can be used with other clauses uh, to retrieve specific information from the tables. You can use operators like plus, multiply, divide. They can be used on the columns, like here it's used on salary.
We miss using comma.
Yeah. I'll not go through all of them because we're not going to be using so many in the question.
Okay, but can come in the exams.
Um,
Can they ask
I
questions
don't
like?
remember seeing them in the assignment. Uh,
Mhm.
is null is there in one of
I
the
would say let's.
exercises in the book?
Yeah, I would say let's breeze through it. At least we
Okay.
are familiar. We should not be like, if a question comes in which is not out of the assignment and the textbook, at least we should be familiar of it's possible. So probably we can work on that. Let's just breeze through it. Don't spend too much time.
Okay. So using column aliases to print column names
Mhm.
as something different, you can put it in quotes after the column name. Concatenation operator is these two pipes. So here they've used the concatenation operator and used a column alias.
Yeah.
Using literal character string to print name is a job. Okay, so in the output they want to print is a
Mhm.
and then the job of the employee. So this is put in quotes in between the pipe operators.
We can add you can add some text in between the results by
Mhm.
using this thing. What is that pipe used for?
Concatenation.
Okay. So when we're going to get the data, let's say name, is going to get concatenated with is a, and then space again, employee, job, something like that, right?
Here,
Okay.
to eliminate duplicate rows, if you want to print distinct values, you use the distinct clause. Uh, Special comparison operator between and gives the range between two values.
Okay.
Select employee name salary from employee where salary is between 1000 and 1500. In is to match any of a list of values. Uh, so you can select attributes from employee where this attribute is matches any of these in this list.
Okay.
Like there's no example here.
Like I think used for
Ye-
searching, something like give me all those
Okay.
employees whose name is like matching the pattern. There is an example just below that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, here.
Like list the name of the employees which starts with S. So we'll say like S and then percentage.
Okay, and ending with this, the percentage comes before.
Yeah.
Is none is used to um, find out if the attribute is
Value-
none.
If the value is null, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we have the logical operators. not and or.
Mhm.
So we can use them with the where clause to, if you want to put several conditions.
Okay.
Order by is used to order the rows by a certain attribute,
Mhm.
and it normally orders by ascending. If you want to order by descending, use the descending clause.
Okay. Like sort it basically in ascending
Yeah,
order. Is all the data, let's say in the ascending order of the name or descending order of the name and the data. Order
then
by.
there are aggregate functions. Count, min, max, and average. So you can use them along with an attribute to find minimum, maximum, or average.
So we'll calculate that and it'll give us the result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Group by is used to group tuples on the basis of a certain common attribute, a value,
Mhm.
and the where clause can also be used with it.
Okay.
Um,
So
select
Maya, with
department.
this speed, I think we can finish the whole.
Sorry, I'm a bit tired.
Okay, no worries, no problem. The reason why we're going through this is because at least we are familiar with this, because if we directly start doing it, then at least people may not understand. So just breathing through it.
Yeah.
Fine.
This is used to group by department number and find the count of the employees in each department.
Mhm.
Having is used for creating conditions on grouped information.
Okay, so you can put condition.
Yeah, like having maximum salary. And then
Yeah.
insert into is for inserting into a table. Uh,
Okay.
update
Yeah.
is for updating a table. You can add attributes.
Right.
And delete is used for deleting values, or you
Right.
can use it for deleting attributes as well, or use update for that.
Right. So I think data manipulation language (DML) has different commands. The key ones are select, insert, update, and delete. Now, select can be used with different combinations of those statements like group by, is null, all of those things. So those can be used in combination to get the desired result. So now we'll go and do some of the uh, question paper answers and see how we can implement these commands.
So I'll run the queries here.
Okay,
I've put some sample data.
good. So how did you put it actually? Did you upload it or something?
No, you can put sample data as CSV and it converts it into the
Oh,
DDL.
nice.
So the first question is list all the account numbers in the order of name. So we need to use a select.
What's all this on top? Create table account. What's all this?
Oh, that's the tables and some sample data.
Have you written it or was it automatically written?
It was automatically added. I just put
Okay.
in the data.
Okay. Can you just explain the table, what all it includes before we start actioning it?
Yeah, there's an account table with
Okay.
account number,
Mm-hmm.
name, and balance,
Okay.
and a bank table with branch code, account number, and phone. The account number is a foreign key referencing account.
Okay. So there are two tables basically.
Yes.
Okay. And this is as per the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first question is list all the account numbers in the order of name.
Okay.
So we have to use select and order by.
Okay.
Select account
From.
number.
Order by, right?
Yeah. Do we need to print the whole row or just account number?
Just account number, I think.
Okay.
Does it say what we have to print? What does the question say? Can you repeat that?
The question says list all the account numbers in the order of name.
So it's just asking us to print the account numbers, nothing else. In the order of the name also. In the order of name, okay. Maybe just print the name also so that it's visible. Tell account number, comma, name, right?
Yeah.
So whatever we have to print, we can put that after select with comma separated. If we want to print all the columns, then we can use star. But since question is only asking us to print the account number in the order of name, then it's safe to just use these two. Then from keyword, which means from which table you want to print it, and we put the table name after from, and then order by is to sort it in that order.
Yeah. The next question is find the account number which has the highest balance.
Did you run this query?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Here you can see the output.
Okay.
So now you have to use the max function.
Mhm.
Select account number.
What was the question you said?
Find the account number which has the highest balance.
Account number, the highest balance. Okay. I don't think we should put max balance at the end. We should just keep that same pattern of how it's written, like select account number from account and then max balance. I think, in my opinion, we should keep all the conditions set towards the end.
Oh, but this is going to be a column, right?
Yeah. Can you try what I'm suggesting?
Uh, like this.
Yeah, where? Yeah, like this. Where I think will not come, right? Select account number from account. Let me see. Hold on. How is the max balance used?
I think it has to be before the from.
Okay, can you check the textbook once where the max is used, how they're using it?
Yeah. Yeah, they're using it along with the other attributes.
The way you have used it before?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Remove where and just check if max works like that.
Like this.
Yeah. See what happens. No, it'll not work. Yeah, you're right. So basically, we want account number and balance, but we're just wrapping it with the max because we want the uh, max balance, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yep.
Wait, but this isn't correct.
Not
It
correct.
should print this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I made a mistake here.
Let me also look one.
Select account number. Or maybe there should be where from
That's
account
what I'm saying.
where.
Where? Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, send me the link of the question paper now on the chat.
yeah.
Thanks. Okay, find account number which has the highest balance. Find max account. Um, can it be order by account number?
Um, Order by balance.
Yeah, select account number, remove max balance from there. Remove group by. Grouping is not required, I don't think. Order by balance, yeah. Remove group by. Do you think group by is required?
I don't know, just trying something.
No. So one second. Third is what? Okay, so limit one is fine, but then want
Then
ascend.
prints only one.
Hmm?
Then
Did
prints
you
only
get the
the one.
did you get the correct answer?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So order by not only works in the ascending descending order of the alphabet, also works in the number, I guess.
Yes. So we're ordering by descending and printing only one.
Hmm. Yeah, correct. So Meher, what we established is that we have to do a lot of practice, lot of
Yeah.
practice. This is there are a lot of websites where you can practice MySQL queries. So what they do is they give you the sums. They give you a database on top, then they give you sum. Then you're supposed to write the query and run it. If it works, you move to the next chapter, and then in case if you're stuck, it gives you hint, it gives you solution. So I think that's the way to basically improve on this, because the exams questions might be similar but could be anything, not doesn't have to be the same questions. So that's why you have to practice a lot. But this is good
Yeah.
enough to at least get started with this. Let's move on to the next question.
Okay. The next question is list the branch code, account number, name, and balance of each account.
Account number, branch code, account number, name and balance.
Select branch code, account number, name, and balance. And then we have to do a join on the two
Yeah,
tables.
correct. Using the foreign key. So can you break it into multiple lines? So ideally, in the real world, Sumaya, what we do is we break it after every keyword. So now, yeah, correct. So we are selecting branch code, account dot account number, name balance from account, join bank, account number dot account number equals bank account number. Okay, cool, good.
Okay, the
So
next question is
by using the dot operator, it tells you which account number you're referring to, which table's account number you're referring to. Correct.
yeah, otherwise it shows an error.
Correct. If we, yeah, okay.
The next question is find the number of accounts in each branch.
Okay. So we use count function, right?
Yes, we need to use count and group by. Select branch code and we count how many times the branch code appears.
more readable, right?
Yeah, the column will show up as number of accounts.
Okay. So what is group by used for?
I don't know exactly what it does.
Okay. Okay. Used for grouping the pupils on the basis of certain common attribute value in multiple departments. Grouping the pupils on the basis of certain common attributes. Okay. Yeah, there's a similar example in the textbook also.
If you don't use the group by, then it shows only one row,
Okay.
and it counts all of the branch codes together.
Okay. Or all
So
these
that's the last question.
yeah, are all these columns um, attributes in the same table in the branch code?
Sorry.
Okay, so this is the branch code in the bank. Can you scroll up in the on the left? It's really hard to understand when we don't have the table in front of us.
Yeah,
Okay, so we have branch code. Okay, where is the branch code in the table account?
it's in bank. This is
Ah,
from
okay,
the bank table.
okay, okay. How many tables are there?
Two tables: account and bank.
Okay, okay. So branch code, and then okay, so we're counting the branch code. Okay, so we're grouping together these two attributes. Fine, cool, makes sense. We'll probably practice more later on.
Yes,
Uh,
there are a
uh,
lot of exercises in the textbook as well.
okay, we'll probably use some online tool because see, what happens is textbook, creating those table it's too time consuming. I'll find out a
Yeah,
website. If you get anyone, then share it on the on the group. If I find something, I'll let you know. But we have to
okay.
practice a lot to get become good at this. Otherwise, we may tend to do mistake. It's an 8 marks question, and I'm 100% sure it will come in the exam.
Yeah.
Okay, so were we supposed to cover anything else?
No, just these SQL queries.
Okay, so we'll get back to the study, and we'll go to the revision. Do you have access to Google Drive for object-oriented programming?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you take us through the recap from the start? From slide number 7. You can ask Kritika to read if you want to. How many days left in exam? So today's 17. 3 plus 6, 9 days. Are you guys feeling scared?
Yeah.
Sumaya,
Super
you guys
scared.
get that. Sumaya cannot say she's getting scared. Kritika, you saying something?
No, I'm so nervous.
Yeah, I was saying I am super scared. And then looking at you two, I am even more scared because it feels like y'all have practiced so much and I haven't.
Don't worry. It's
I'm
okay.
only half done.
Just do as much as you can. That's all.
Yes.
I feel a little bit better because at least we have been doing this daily classes, so we have done something at least.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Or we'll keep revising, so that's why we're revising today. So slide number 6, actually, not 7, 6. And you can ask Kritika to read some slides if you want. Sumaya.
Okay, Kritika, can you read please entire?
Yes, okay. Um, Object in class. Should I start with slide 7?
You need to look at the screen because Sumaya is already
Okay.
controlling that,
All right. All
and
right.
then
Okay.
give it to them.
Okay. Object in class. An object is nothing but a real world entity that can be distinctly identified. An object is a instance member of a class that has properties and methods. A class is a template or blueprint that defines data fields, member data or instance variables, and methods, member functions of the objects of the same type. Advantages of member data and member functions within the class. Member functions and member data are kept inside the class to restrict their access from outside of the class or avoid accidental modification. Data hiding is ensured by keeping data inside the class. Definition of member functions or methods inside the class provides scope of modification in the definition of a method without affecting the outside world. What care should be taken in OOP? In Java, one object can be used as a reference to another object of the same type. That is, both are of the same class type. When objects are used as a reference, one should take care while performing operations on objects because if there is any change data members values of one object, values of respective data members of the second object also gets changed. How an object is created. An object is created in the following steps. A declaration. A variable is declared with the variable name and an object type. Instantiation. Allocate required space to the object using new operator. Uh, Declaring objects of student class. Step 1, student 1, semicolon. Step 2, student 1 is equal to new student, open close brackets, semicolon. This allocates memory. In normal practice, these two steps are written in a single statement as student 1 is equal to new student, brackets, semicolon.
We might have looked at this slide almost like 10 times. I'm sure it's going to come in the exam.
Hmm. I actually hope so. And this part is really good.
Yeah, so last time what we did was we only covered the previous year exam, not previous year, but last year near exam questions. And they kind of pulled it the question from the textbook rather than those. But this time, what you're seeing on slide covers like 95% of what's there in the textbook. So, now hopefully we can't go wrong.
Yes, and last time we also had a lot of question papers, and this time
Yeah,
we don't. So it's just a lot better to do everything that's there.
correct,
Yes.
correct. Cool. Carry on.
How an object is created. First, only a reference to a variable or object is created, and at this stage, no actual object exists. When a new operator is used, the memory is then allocated for the actual existence of an object. This new operator in Java is used for dynamically allocating memory for an object. It returns a reference to the object and also binds the reference with the object.
So first, only the reference to a variable is created, and then when you use the new operator, then the memory is allocated. So these are two things you need to remember. First, the reference is created, and second, the memory is allocated when you use the new operator. In these two steps, we don't have to read the last part because I already read it. Let's move on to the next slide.
Yeah. Difference between classes and objects. Objects have the states and behaviors, while a class describes the behavior slash state of the object of its type support. For example, cars, dogs, humans, etc., are objects of a of a class species. A dog object of a class species can have its state or properties like name, breed, and color are the state. Behavior or method like running is the dog's behavior, example barking, wagging the tail. Data hiding, how it is achieved. Data hiding enables developers to protect their data and hide their implementation details from outside interference. To implement the data hiding, variables in a class should have a private access modifier. So when someone needs access or needs to modify the private variables from outside of the class, they should only be accessible by using the get and can be modified by using set methods. What are getters and setters? Private variables can only be accessed within the same class. However, it is possible to access them if we provide public get and set methods. The get method returns the variable value and the set method sets the value. Then we can use those methods, example get name and set name, to access the value of private variable. Program with getters and setters to demo
I'll read
data
this one.
hiding.
I'll
Yes.
read this one. So we have a class called person. It has a private variable called name. So may I just go to the next one? Yeah. So now we have another class called name. If you instantiate this object using person, what is sound coming from? My object dot name. We are trying to set the value, but we'll get an error, and the reason for that is because we have declared the name variable as private in the previous class. If we try to get the value using my object dot name, again we'll get an error because it's private. So to solve this problem, we have defined two different functions called get name and set name, which are called getters and setters. And then click on the next one, Sumaya. Then instead, if we try to access these using get name, we can get the value, and using set name, we can set the value like John. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, go on, Kritika.
Abstraction and using abstract class. Data abstraction is the process of hiding detailed information and only presenting the essential information to the user. For example, a car can be viewed as a car rather than its individual components. In Java programming, abstraction can be achieved by using the abstract class or interfaces. Any user or client can use a method without knowing about its implementation details. Abstraction. For example, the implementation or body of the method black box is hidden from the user or the client. When we use the system.out.println on the method to display a string, we do not bother about how it is implemented. For example, sending SMS where you type the text and send the message. You don't know the internal processing about the message delivery. Abstraction lets you focus on what the object does instead of how it does it.
Right. So to sum it up, data hiding is basically just showing the essential details to the user and hiding all the more details. And in abstraction, for example, you have a method. User doesn't care about what it does. All it cares about that it's supposed to return a value by providing the arguments. So we hide the implementation details of how that method is implemented, all the body of it, and to the user we just ask them to use the function and pass the parameters and it'll give you whatever is supposed to return. So that's abstraction, and that's achieved using abstract classes and interfaces. Go on.
Abstract class, a class which is declared as abstract with an abstract keyword, is known as an abstract class. A method which is declared as abstract and does not have implementation in the abstract class is known as an abstract method. Example, run brackets. It can have abstract and non-abstract methods. It needs to be extended and its method implemented by the class extending it. It cannot be instantiated. It can have constructors and static methods also. It can have final methods which will force the subclass not to change the body of the method.
Right. So if you look at the example on the right, an abstract class needs to have an abstract keyword, and that's what it is. And its method are defined but not implemented. They are implemented by the class that is extending it. So we say abstract void run, but we don't put the body inside of the abstract class. When we extend this class, let's say Honda 4 is extending this one, then at that time we have to, actually not can, but we have to implement that run class as a run method, because the rule for the abstract class is that if any class that is extending the abstract class must implement all of its method. So if there were any other methods like do something, then that method also must be implemented inside of the Honda 4. But since there's only one method, only that one is implemented. When we say implemented, it means you have to write the body of it, whatever it does. And this is abstraction, because if you see an abstract class, we are not showing what that run method does. All it's mentioned is that there's a function called run, it does something. So we're hiding those details from the user. Move on to the next slide.
Advantages of abstract class
Oh,
with the
I had
help
to
of
add something here, right?
Okay, no problem. So when Sumaya adds it, then
I
we
didn't
read
do
it.
it yet.
No problem. Let's
Yes.
move on.
Okay. Encapsulation. It is a process of binding the data members and methods together. It is done securely by making the data field accessible only to class members by declaring the data fields as private. Everyone outside of the class knows how to access and use the methods without thinking about implementation details.
वो डॉक्टर कैप्सूल देता है ना, उसमें देखा हो कि अंदर के इंग्रेडिएंट्स यूजर से छुपे होते हैं. कुछ कैप्सूल्स होती हैं वो ट्रांसपेरेंट होती हैं, उसमें दिख जाता है सब कुछ, वो डॉट डॉट छोटे छोटे. बट कुछ कैप्सूल्स जो होती हैं वो नॉन ट्रांसपेरेंट होती हैं, ओपेक होती हैं. तो यूजर मतलब जो उसको खाने वाला, ही डजंट नो कि अंदर क्या है. तो दैट्स व्हाट इनकैप्सुलेशन इज. ये हमारे क्लासेस के अंदर जो मेथड्स होते हैं और जो वेरिएबल्स होते हैं, वो बेसिकली एक क्लास के अंदर टोटली हिडन है. इज नॉट विजिबल टू द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर तुम किसी वेरिएबल को प्राइवेट डिक्लेयर करोगे तो आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड कैन नॉट एक्सेस इट unless you use getters and setters. So that's what it's talking about. Encapsulation is binding the data members and methods together inside the class. So ये राइट साइड में जो फिगर है उसमें देखो क्लास लिखा हुआ है, और कर्ली ब्रेसेस के अंदर डेटा मेंबर्स मतलब वेरिएबल्स, मेथड्स मतलब फंक्शंस, इन दोनों को बाइंड करके रखा है इनकैप्सुलेटेड इनसाइड ऑफ द क्लास. तो क्लास तुम्हारा वो कैप्सूल है, और उसके अंदर जो भी है, जो नहीं दिख रहा है यूजर को, वो उसके प्राइवेट मेथड्स और प्राइवेट वेरिएबल्स हो सकते हैं. कैरी ऑन.
In Java, setter or getter methods are also used to ensure the read-only or write-only operations. Inheritance. Inheritance provides reusability by inheriting the property in a new class from the derived class. It is a process by which one object acquires the property of another object. The inheritance allows for the creation of a new class similar to the previously defined class, and the new class can have its own data members and methods.
तो रियल वर्ल्ड का अगर एग्जांपल देना है, तो लेट्स से कृतिका इनहेरिट्स सम ऑफ द क्वालिटीज फ्रॉम हर पेरेंट्स. तो उसके पेरेंट्स की कोई क्वालिटी होगी, मे बी दे आर गुड एट मे बी आर्ट्स, so she might be good at arts, but Kritika herself will have some other qualities also. She might be good at playing sports. तो यहीं पे यही इनहेरिटेंस है, कि इनहेरिटेंस मीन्स inheriting the properties of your parents, and you may also have new properties and methods also. तो अगर वो एग्जांपल याद है, तो you can easily write the same thing here in inheritance.
Yes, interesting example.
Yeah, and this is supporting the concept of hierarchy. अब कृतिका के जब बच्चे होंगे फ्यूचर में, तो they will inherit कृतिका's property plus have more of their properties. So that's called the hierarchical inheritance, called multi-level inheritance. Move on.
Yes. In OOP, a base class is seen as a superclass or parent class, and a derived class as a subclass or child class.
Okay. So you are subclass, Kritika. Your parents are superclass.
Yes. Advantages of inheritance. It can reduce the development time of the program because reusability of the code requires less memory, less execution time, and redundancy of the code can be minimized.
Mhm.
Flexibility. Inheritance makes the code flexible to change, as you will adjust only in one place and the rest of the code will work smoothly.
Right.
Overriding. With the help of inheritance, you can override the methods of the base class. Data hiding. The base class in inheritance decides which data to be kept private, such that the derived class will not be able to alter it.
Okay. तो ये
Okay.
बेसिकली खाली एक्सप्लेन किया हुआ है कैसे डिराइव किए हैं डिफरेंट क्लासेस, हायरार्की है उसके. सो वी कैन मूव ऑन.
Types of inheritance. Single. A class inherits another class.
Yeah.
Multi-level. There is a chain of inheritance. One class inherits another class, which is inherited by another class. Hierarchical.
Yeah.
Two or more classes inherits a single class.
So
Note.
yeah, so to give you example in common world, let's say that a girl doesn't get married, so then there is no children after that. So that's your single level inheritance. Only that person will inherit, and maybe that person doesn't have any siblings. So that's your single level. Only one person inheriting the parent quality. In second example, the person gets married and they have their own children. So that's your multi-level inheritance. And in the third example, there are siblings again who don't get married. So both siblings will inherit the property of the parent. That's your hierarchy. That's your hierarchical. Cool. Let's move on.
Yes. A single level inheritance example. A class inherits another class.
तुम्हारे को जाना है?
Should I read the code?
And I'll read it, no problem. So there's a
Okay.
class called animal. It has a method called eat. This is single level inheritance, which means dog extends animal. There's no further extension after dog. So the a dog has its own property, sorry, own method called bark. So now when you use this particular class dog, when you instantiate it, you'll be able to access both bark and eat, because the child will inherit the method of the parent. That's why both the methods will be available. Okay, let's go on.
Multi-level inheritance example. This is a chain of inheritance. There is a chain of inheritance. One class inherits another class, which is inherited by another class.
Right. So dog inherits animal, and baby dog inherits dog.
Barking.
Yeah. So now if you instantiate baby dog, it will have access to not only its own method called weep, but also its parent, which is bark, and then grandparent, which is eat. So all three methods will be accessible. Let's move on.
Hierarchical inheritance example. Two or more classes inherits a single class.
Okay. So in this, so now that we know all the level of inheritance, Ritika, can you explain multi-level inheritance?
Multi-level inheritance. In this, one class is inherited by another class, but there's like only one.
Mm-hmm. That's a single
um,
level inheritance.
s-
Uh, yeah.
and then that is inherited by another class. So
Correct.
that is
Correct.
multi-level. So three
Correct.
steps. And
Absolutely.
so if there is a bark, then
Mm-hmm.
that will be inherited by, let's say, walking, and that
Yeah.
will be inherited by weeping, and this is about a dog.
Right. Perfect. Great. Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Okay, member access and inheritance. Often, an instance variable of a class will be declared private to prevent its unauthorized use or tampering. Inheriting a class does not overrule the private access restriction. Thus, even though a subclass or child includes all of the members of the superclass or parent, it cannot access those members of the superclass that have been declared private.
Right.
Polymorphism and its advantages. Polymorphism is derived from Greek words poly and morphs. The word poly means many and morphs means forms.
एक कॉमन वर्ड का एग्जांपल देता हूँ, जैसे कि बेलन हो गया, ठीक है? तो बेलन को रोटी बनाने के लिए भी यूज कर सकते हैं, और कृतिका की पिटाई करने के लिए यूज कर सकते हैं, यूजिंग वन थिंग मल्टीपल। चलो आगे बढ़ो।
A polymorphism is the ability of an object to take many forms.
हम्म,
It allows one interface to be used for a general class of actions. The polymorphism principle is implemented in Java programming with methods overloading and overriding. Overloading allows methods that perform similar or closely related functions to be accessed through a common name. Overriding works together with inheritance to enable code reuse of existing classes without the need for recompilation.
okay.
It tends to reduce the pairing of multiple functionalities. It allows programmers to reuse, evaluate, and execute the program modules forms written once. In certain
Okay.
aspects, they can be repeated.
So this is a very important question, because it's not only come. Let's go back once. Ismail. Because it's not only come in the assignment, it's also there in the question paper. So we already understand polymorphism, that an object that can take many forms. Um, but main thing we also have to remember is the advantage. So advantage is like it reduce pairing of multiple functionalities, uh, and allows programmers to reuse, evaluate, and execute program modules forms written once. In certain aspects, they can be repeated. तो ये अच्छे से हमको याद कर लेना ये वाला क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, let's move on.
Types of polymorphism. Static polymorphism is the linking of a function
Are you on mute?
Okay, I'll continue from here.
Okay.
Static polymorphism is the linking of a function with an object during compile time. It is achieved through the method overloading. In overloading, methods use the same name but with different parameters.
Hmm.
Dynamic polymorphism, in this the compiler doesn't determine the method to be executed. It's the Java virtual machine that performs the process at runtime. It is achieved through method overriding.
Hmm.
This is an example of overloading.
Okay.
Uh, the method sum has the same name but different parameters and return types
Hmm.
and different functions.
Okay. So it's been called multiple times, but each time with different signature or parameter.
Yeah.
So, whenever possible, please add all these answers, because the sooner we add, the sooner it'll be that many times we'll be able to revise it.
Yeah, I did some of them. I think of the multi-threading questions.
Oh,
I'll get to these soon.
awesome.
Overloading allows different methods to have the same name but different signatures, where the signature can differ by the number of input parameters or type of input parameters or both.
Right. I think this is not. This is already done. It's just the question that's been added, right? This is just a question that's been added.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes, I think
It's
in the
just a
previous slide also it explained
Yeah, we don't have to do anything here.
advantages.
Hmm. We just put the question so we know that it's been asked in exam. Where there are blank slides, that's where we have to put. Okay, let's move on.
Overloading is related to compile time or static polymorphism.
Hmm.
All right, I'll
Polymorph.
read.
Okay.
Okay. Polymorphism overriding.
Mm-hmm. So, Maya?
We can see that a single method, draw brackets, can be used to draw different shapes like triangle, circle, and rectangle. So here we can observe that name of the function is the same, but the functionality is different. This type of polymorphism is known as function overriding. Use
So,
of
one second. So, just to recap, overloading, overriding. So, overloading means that making one function do more, like each time calling, for example, with a different parameter. And overriding means changing what it does. Okay, so for example, one function was supposed to do something, like example here draw. In the parent class, it was supposed to do something, but in the child class is doing something else. So we are overriding its actual functionality. We are changing its functionality, right? So कृतिका, जो मैंने बेलेवन वाला एग्जांपल दिया था वो कौन सा है, ओवरराइडिंग है या ओवरलोडिंग है?
overriding.
नो, अगर तुम्हारी
Overloading.
देखो, ओवरलोडिंग इसलिए, ओवरराइडिंग नहीं, ओवरलोडिंग है। ओवरलोडिंग इसलिए है बिकॉज मॉम तुम्हारी उसी सेम बेलन से रोटी बनाती हैं तुम्हारी पिटाई करती हैं। ओवरराइडिंग तब होगा जिस दिन तुम्हारे मॉम रोटी बनाना बंद कर देंगे और तुम्हारी पिटाई उसको सिर्फ तुम्हारी पिटाई करने के लिए यूज करेंगे। दैट्स व्हेन इट्स ओवरराइडिंग इट्स its work. Belan has no longer other purpose than being.
मेरी
That's
पिटाई करना हंसी.
अभी नहीं भूलेगा ना, ओवरराइडिंग ओवरलोडिंग। ठीक है, let's move on.
आप
We have
ये भी
five.
बोल सकते थे कि मेरी पिटाई नहीं करके वो सिर्फ रोटी बना रही है मम्मा। वो नहीं बोलोगे आप?
I like this part better. I'll give that. Yeah, but I'm glad you understood that concept. Let's do one more slide and then we'll call it a day.
Yes, okay. Use of super keyword in Java. The super keyword refers to superclass parent objects. It is used to call superclass methods and to access the superclass or parent constructor. It is used to eliminate the confusion between superclasses and subclasses that have methods with the same name.
राइट, तो इसमें बस ये है कि कभी कभी पेरेंट और चाइल्ड क्लास में सेम मेथड का नाम होता है, और अगर कोई क्लास इनहेरिट करता है और सेम क्लास डिफाइन करता है तो कैसे पता चले कि कौन सा वाला मेथड कॉल हो रहा है, पेरेंट का हो रहा है या चाइल्ड का हो रहा है। तो अगर सेम नाम है तो वील यूज सुपर, so super keyword. So before calling the method you will prefix it with super dot, like in this example super dot animal sound. Parent में भी same नाम का function है animal sound, और child में भी है animal sound. तो अब उसको कॉल करना है पेरेंट वाला तो we'll use super dot animal sound. अगर child वाला कॉल करना है तो we'll just use animal sound. So that's what it's talking about, the use of super. It is used to call the parent method. बस I think that's it for today. Let's catch up again tomorrow at 6.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.